Life is just like a gamble that no one can win. In the end, everyone ends up dying. In the end, everyone ends up losing. It's all the same in the end. Whether it's a gamble, the thrill of life, the value itself, it all ends up the same. Overall, Usogui has some of the most unique foreshadowing and character development that I've ever seen. Whether things from chapter 60 coming full circle in chapter 500, whether it's a character like Kaji, finally realizing that he must break the chains that divide him from becoming and standing as Baku's equal. This overlook will analyze each aspect that I found most important, and of course, important plot points and characters. At the end, a final, complete, and justified rating. Well, of course, this is all mainly intended to be subjective. There is some fact to it, in my opinion, or again, subjective itself, but there's some things that are very obvious. Thank you for reading this far, and hope to entice you to maybe do the same, which is of course reading Usogui, and have a deeper appreciation for such a great series if you already have read it. Now, let's begin.
Wake up, get up there. Raise your voice, I guess, like yours.
Baku Madarame, or Usogui, the Lie Eater. The progression of someone who can stand up their profession is something that must not be overlooked when inspecting Baku. Baku Madarame from chapter 1 to conclusion has some fantastic development, whether it's seeking to surpass the leader or strengthen the bonds of those around him with a devilish leash in his hand. Looking at Baku as the manga progresses, we start to notice that he wins these bets with a wit and wagers with a certain sense of relaxation and ease, almost like he's planned all of it. Looking at some earlier arcs, he considers all, whether it's his environment or people he puts himself around due to the bet at hand. More specifically, in Hangman for example, he takes the slightest things that happen in a major consideration to win. Whether it's Kaji shooting the camera that was used by Sadokuni to spy on Baku's hand, which gave him the upper hand, or whether it's Sadokuni's mannerisms as the match continues and he finally realizes his end is near. Baku has an overall sense of the future and how it will be decided, for he doesn't believe in fate more than the fact that it all will be dependent on his actions, whether he will use it to overcome the concept of destiny, which tends to be a major plot point later on, and even at some earlier points. But this panel, I believe, perfectly describes and adapts this feeling and to Baku's personality, showing that since the beginning, Baku has carved the path he will continue to walk down for as long as he walks, breathes, lives. Adversity will not bring such a man down ever. Another point of Baku's character and his development and his allegories and symbolism, he seeks the metaphorical forbidden fruit, which is a very significant plot point and credit to Baku's amazing development, especially in Protoporus and Air Poker, and even surpassing the leader. The allegory to Adam of the want for infinite knowledge, which can be attained through the fruit, but then being enticed by the serpent, which is ironic because he's also described as, a devilish being. But again, he who will greatly benefit from eating the fruit, and knows that he'll be outlawed from paradise. In Protoporus, Baku seeks this fruit. When he sees it in a vision, he reaches out, but he can't eat it. Why is that? I believe this is because he cannot obtain perfection through knowledge that he obtains, but then again, perfection in the Usoguis have control over everything about one's body and personality and intelligence. Baku seems to not be eligible for the fruit, not worthy, because he cannot obtain it. How will he continue? Baku in the final arc of Usogui, he finally challenges the leader, a longtime friend, no more. Surpassing the leader is a game where both players on both sides bet all that they have, whether it's their life, connections, money, and influence. Compared to the first game, which was more based on luck and not intuition, it was seeing if planes could fly over the site of the match where it was being held in 30 minutes or less. But this game, second time around, is much more simpler than that, in hindsight at least. Just passing the leader, the game which truly shows what a gamble is all about, the finale to a complicated and intense series. What would the game be to conclude such a masterpiece? The game in which was played is called Drop the Handkerchief, which to preface, it's originally a children's game, where one is on offense and one is on defense, but also a game of bluffing, intuition, and mind games, which is perfect because this is what Yako and both leader and Baku want, and a final match between the two. The game is described as one person, codenamed D, holds the handkerchief, and one, codenamed C, will try to guess when said D has dropped the handkerchief. Very simple game, but when considering the players involved, it becomes nothing more than a complex game of intuition, where the players, of course, are none other than the two smartest in the series by far, even surpassing that of Lalo and everybody else in the series. We have the definition of perfection, leader, and a legendary gambler, Usogui. Usogui's character is something that's so complex to a point where I'll definitely have to reread the manga to get even a better grasp at understanding his character. But back to the game concerning the surpassing the leader and concerning Baku's character. When it comes to the final arc, we see the utmost example of Baku's intelligence and the finer details even down to its core. Looking later in the arc, things from even the deciding factor of Preparatoris and his time, which was decided by Baku, again with Madara, Lalo, Leader, and Baku, we see how, he decides the time card while Lalo decides the allies card. This is very important for foreshadowing later on. He uses all of this into consideration for his ultimate plan of beating Leader, someone who I feel like he knows is perfect, or then again he doesn't. This is the plan of the leap second route, which again was all calculated since the beginning of Preparatoris, as if he knew this was all to take place. And you just have to think, right, the sheer intelligent capability you have to know everything will go your way. He, again, defies fate in Preparatoris. With Lalo originally becoming the Kaiser, it was all according to plan. Baku let all of this happen, whether it was to go against him or go for him. And again, all was in accordance to Baku. All was revealed as the arc progressed. Baku knew from the beginning what he was going to do, even since chapter 1. Every gamble, every thrill obtained was all according to plan. Baku Madarame is one of the most intelligent and capable characters I've ever experienced, and at the very least, more is to look at. A great aspect of Baku's character is his fashion and hair, which of course is very noticeable but opposes that of Hal, or Leader. This is important in air poker. Leader becomes that of an image made of imperfection, someone in total control. Someone like Leader, who follows destiny and has those around him who defined it, is opposed by someone like Baku, who carved the own way of his life and his destiny, and even overcame adversity in multiple points in the manga, and he will never let destiny take the reins of his life. Baku is that everyone around him, no, everyone in the world strives to be. They strive to have value and morals, and a thrill to live. The world in such a pessimistic era, no one knows how to live without striving for perfection. But not Usogui. Usogui is far from perfect, but yet still able to oppose it. This is the power, the sheer power of Baku Madarame. This is the power of a human determined to achieve it all, and means made by him and not by fate. He opposes perfection and fate in one fatal and quick swoop, but it's ironic, isn't it? All this, such perfection can only be bested by perfection, right? How can Baku, a mere grounded human, beat somebody like Leader, who is consistently defined as godlike and perfect in every way, shape, or form? The question is not as simple as I'd like it to be, but it's not necessarily a flimsy plot point either, but I can easily make a pretty good guess. Baku described Leader as a conglomerate of personalities, someone who is multiple people, but then again, it's none of them nor all of them at the exact same time. I believe that the perfect Leader we saw in air poker is not the Leader we see in STL, or at least halfway through the arc, that is. But then again, he's not even the person we see before Baku. We do not know who he is because he is all and none, also described as omnipresence, a concept where everyone is nowhere at the same time. Leader is someone with an overwhelming authority and aura. A leader is someone whose presence is known without he or she even being there. Baku's presence, not necessarily authority, is very important to his effective characters around him, mainly Hal, Kaji, Marco, and Yako and Kiara. He forces his aura to make the people believe in him, his ideals, the thrill of gambling. He even makes Kiara, someone who only wishes for violence and to be stronger than everybody else, believe in him in any way possible. Which again, Kiara was originally indifferent to whatever happened to Baku. Just keep that in mind. This isn't the most of his presence, but there is still so much to cover. But so far, this concludes the section of Baku Madarame, and I hope this again kind of provides some insight you didn't know beforehand about his character. But now we'll be moving on to, I think, my most favorite character in the manga. Intro, Leader, the Weave of Perfection. Leader is the perfect example of an opposite from Baku, even considering the clothes that they both wear. Leader has opposite colors according to pieces of clothing in comparison to Baku, again being black and white. The difference between them is like the difference between Buddha and the monkey who challenged him. One is godlike while the other one is grounded to earth. The difference between the two is the difference between heaven and earth. One is perfect while the other sits below. Leader, and the concept of perfection, is quite literally the greatest representation of something so abstract in media that I have consumed so far. Leader brings something so incomprehensible to the comprehensible. And of course, the peak of his character development. Perfect. I finally achieved it. To weave it together with the opposite is all my will. He's a step above the rest in the series. He's the perfect leader for Club Kakuro, which also has allegories to Buddha. The number of limited referees being 48 ties into the narrative of Buddha, and of course, the head of it all being Leader, who represents Buddha himself in certain imagery and character design. For example, the character design of Leader, with having the dot between his two eyes, is a fairly obvious but amazing portrayal of the imagery involved with this character. For it all comes full circle with Buddha reaching nirvana and Leader reaching perfection. And of course, more imagery will be shown in the video that concerns Buddha and Leader. But a leader is more than what imagery defines him as, or whatever symbolism that pertains to him. He is much more to his character. Leader's personalities, which he has multiple of due to memory loss or social circumstances, each describe a time in his life. Like Hal, for example. During this point in time around Baku, who gave him his name, wanted to be just like Baku, explaining why Hal took the bet with Fukuro, the most dangerous bet he's ever partook in to this point. But of course, all is revealed to him with the coming of air poker. During air poker, Hal and Fukuro face off in a game representing deadly agonies, such as drowning, impalement, burning, and etc. With this occurring at the same time as Baku and Lalo's match, the already intense situation between Hal and Fukuro becomes even more so, with deadly agonies being applied to both Fukuro and Hal. Their wit's end is reaching near, but something clicks in the leader. He switches personalities, but not in the way you think. He doesn't become leader or Hal, but the perfect Kirima Soichi. This is a pivotal moment simply due to the context of Soichi's personalities being brought on by circumstance or memory loss or social situations, but this time things are different. Soichi breaks all chains and finally creates the meaning and path he was meant to follow. And to credit, Soi in kanji in translation means to create, which is a massive, massive part of his character. And with this, he becomes what he was born to be. Perfection. To quote, we are aliens that have come to invade Earth and enslave humanity. We are the ones that came from a distant planet to invade the Earth. Soichi, after the game with Fukuro, now he's set into the scene of surpassing the leader. During this arc, which goes against what I said earlier, in the earlier parts of the arc, we do know what leader Baku is facing, and that is the same leader that achieved perfection. This is apparent because of Soichi's flawless calls and even full body control with abilities being acquired such as echolocation, which again shows the definition of perfection in Usogui. The complete dichotomy between the two shows how tense the final encounter between these two are. But this is also the first encounter in a sense that they've had, for it is the mastery of both facing each other. Surpassing leaders, as I stated earlier, a game where one bet's all they have, which Soichi was prepared to do. In the few times Soichi is injected with near death, he has visions of his father and mother, who were both killed. But his mother is a more interesting case when it concerns his character. And to kind of go off this, Iko, who is his mother, was murdered during an interview. Iko talks about multiple concepts of fate and how it's all kind of due to misfortune, and how like anybody in her perfect world would not be bound by fate or boundaries that other people have set on them, but instead they will overcome all of it. This again is what the difference between Baku and leader is. One defines their own path, whether it's due to fate or decisions made by them, it's all concrete to them. While the other lets people around them just kind of, shove around, not necessarily shove around, but then again, in a sense kind of that, but is more defined by the people around him and the circumstances he's in. But of course, leader surpasses this archetype. And to discuss another important thing before I conclude the video, we must discuss the print speed book, which is bet over by leader and Baku multiple times throughout the manga, whether it's bookstore or the flashbacks in bookstore. Now, the print speed is about two bees, both being from opposite kingdoms at war, who meet each other. And when they meet each other, something clicks in their head. This is the best friend I've always wanted. This is the person who has filled the void of my loneliness. This represents both Baku and leader, or Hal, perfectly when it comes to their camaraderie and relationship. For Baku, this whole time, has been wanting to just get Hal back to be his friend, to be his companion. This is all of it. This is what Baku has done. Even up to surpassing the leader, it's all been to get in connection with Hal, but not necessarily throw everyone else in the dust. But again, in Prince B, we see how both kind of grow distant and wary of each other, both seeking more and more power, which is again is a great example of the dichotomy between leader and Baku, who both strive for more power to finally face each other. And of course, when the time comes to face each other, one will die and one will win. But then again, towards the end of the manga, which that epilogue after surpassing the leader, if it's later revealed that leader was resuscitated after the loss of surpassing the leader, and again, he gets his leadership actually transferred from Baku to leader in order to fight the vices, which again I think is a perfect conclusion of the Prince B book and over the overall character arcs between the two. This will conclude the video for now. I hope to revisit this topic and make more videos on more characters in Usogui, such as Kiara, Marco, Kaji, Yako, and even the world building. There's so much more I have planned, and I hope you guys enjoy this very choppy video, because I know I've slipped up so many times saying stuff I did not want to say. But again, I want to thank you guys who have watched to this far. If you enjoyed the video, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I think you won't regret it. Of course, I'm going to talk about more things other than Usogui, but I think this is a good ground what to start on. And again, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.